Welcome to We're Gonna Run It with Joe Lisi and Terry Bowden.
You're listening to We're Gonna Run It.
What's your game plan?
Can they run, but will they run? If you want to run the ball, you got to give it to a guy that's a running back.
Gutless. We're gonna run it.
We're gonna play blue collar. Enjoy it. I said it. Have a little heart and have some stones.
We're gonna run it.
If you want to throw an RPO, you got to run first, pass second. That's why it's not called a PRO. It's an RPO. You got to start with a running game that puts people on their heel.
Take a look at my algo. His algo was used with all data from last year. You're so smart, you're stupid.
We're gonna run it.
And the people that believe that talking head are even stupider than what I thought. I said it.
If you want to run the ball, you got to give it to a guy that's a running back.
You got no shot to get back into the series. No shot. I said it. What's your game plan?
We're gonna run it.
We are going to run it right straight through into week number 8. Joe Lisi and Terry Bowden breaking down all things college football. Coach, an amazing weekend on the field and certainly off the field. Just want to get your thoughts about what transpired in the big games last weekend. I know you were in the SEC's oldest rivalry, controversy, Georgia and Auburn. Thoughts about that and obviously the big situation surrounding James Franklin in Penn State.
I mean, yeah, it continues to be a season where teams that aren't supposed to beat somebody, the upsets, teams that are not even ranked are first of all, they're only underdogs by 3 or 4 points. And then you see these unbelievable upsets that you're not expecting. That's all because of NILs and portal transfers. And the whole officiating, you know, I was at the Auburn, Georgia game. And just the way officiating is done now. I mean, it was 30 years or 1993 through 98 that I was the head coach at Auburn, and we didn't have instant replay. We didn't have all the videos and cameras on the field, and it got to be where the officials couldn't make a decision, couldn't make a call. It all became a bigger part of the game. And then also when coaches get fired, we see them firing coaches in the middle of the season. So, boy, a lot of things happened this weekend, but it was a lot of great football. And I was so glad I got to go to one of the great rivalries in college football. Auburn, Georgia, 1893 it began. I coached in the 100th game between the two schools in 1993, and it ended up being it was a good game. It was a lot of messy penalties and bad officiating, but it was a good game.
It was, and you also played in 96 in the SEC's first overtime game, which took place between Georgia and Auburn, respectively.
Right.
And you just talk about the officiating. I'll start there. I think, you know, if you have to nitpick, you have to take 10 to 15 minutes depending to really find out if the call was right or wrong. You just stop. After 2 minutes, if you don't know, you go with the call on the field. It's just completely ridiculous how we see this play out time and time again. We know every play is reviewable, but a scoring play, especially where it's a quarterback sneak, and half his body is basically in the end zone. You see the ball cross the plane. I mean, that's a 50-50 call. I get it. But if you're taking 10, 15 minutes to make that call, I mean, something has to give.
Yeah, well, and that's the reality of it is he called what he didn't see. He called what he thought he saw. Because if all those cameras couldn't know for sure what happened, he didn't see it. Your best bet was to put the ball on the 1.5 yard line and make it 4th down or make it 3rd, whatever the next down is. That way, no one is put in a different situation. Because when in fact is, it looked like he was over for the touchdown. But they had already called touchdown fumble on the field. So now you had to have almost indisputable proof that it wasn't a fumble. And it's just a bad call. And it ended up, when the officials are the main issue of the game, it ruins the game. And then when they review something, they reviewed play for minutes after minutes after minutes just to agree with what was called on the field.
Yeah.
And so it's gotten out of hand. It's just gotten a little bit out. And poor Auburn, they've lost 2 games. They lost to Oklahoma on a trick play that the officials missed, and then they lost this game on a fumble that would have put them ahead 17-0, and maybe enough to win the game.
Yeah, absolutely. We have talked about how good that Auburn defense is, and that Auburn defense kept them in it yet again. That was an offense for Georgia that entered that matchup averaging well over 190 rushing yards per game, to hold them to 2.5 yards per carry,
Right.
79 yards on the ground was a dominant effort. Their defense, I think, is one of the best in the SEC. They're only allowing, Coach, 86 rushing yards per game. But
go ahead.
right? No,
yeah, I mean, obviously, it's one of the best defenses. Look at their losses to number 5, to number 6, to number 9, and all by 1 scores. I guess the 20-10 is actually 2 scores, but that game went down to the wire. Defense has played well enough for Auburn to be undefeated right now.
Yeah, and again, it's the quarterback position. Jackson Arnold made plays with his legs, but again, when the game was on the line, the passing attack couldn't come and take over. Right? Singleton hasn't been a factor this year. Cam Coleman, all we hear is signing NIL deals. He's a big play wide receiver. You have to find and develop schemes that get your playmakers the ball when the game is on the line, and that's something from an offensive perspective that once that call happened, I just felt like the whole momentum shifted, and I just feel like the game plan shifted from
everything
on offensively. Did you see that as well?
Joe, when that fumble was called in Auburn in Georgia's favor, 85,000 people that were deflated. You could hear this sigh come out of the sideline, come out of the stadium. Everybody said, "Oh, no, here we go again. It's going against us again," and it just changed everything. And from that point forward, at that point, Auburn had over 200 yards of offense. Georgia had about 25 or 30. From that point forward, Georgia had over 200 yards of offense, and Auburn had nothing. But it was almost like they couldn't respond to it. Georgia, that's why when Georgia wins the games like they do over the last 4 or 5 years, they believe they're going to win. When Auburn has lost, Auburn's had 4 straight losing seasons. Right now, Auburn believes they're going to lose, and that's where it hurts. It's not. It's just it's that underlying feeling. It's going to happen to us again. It happened to us in Oklahoma. It happened to us at Texas A&M. Now it's going to happen to us against Georgia, and then you make it happen.
Yeah, and I'll credit Georgia. They started slow yet again, but Kirby is one of the best at halftime adjustments.
That's right.
Offensively and defensively, a number of games, and they just found a way to gut it out. I mean, it was an ugly game. I think that game was ugly. The LSU South Carolina game was ugly. There were a number of different lower scoring games last week in the conference. Even the Alabama Missouri game wasn't as clean as we would have liked it. It was back and forth, tempo for maybe 8 or 9 minutes, and then all of a sudden the game would slow down. It became a defensive battle in the fourth quarter. And again, it's how you find ways to win. And you're absolutely right. Georgia's just done it more, and that's why they've won 2 national championships over the last 5 years. And Auburn, unfortunately, starts 3-0, and now they're reeling. They're 0-3 in the conference, and Hugh is searching for answers right now.
Well, and the thing, you can't win just on one side of the ball. Now, when you have a defensive coordinator head coach like Kirby Smart, I mean, they really do come out slow because he wants to fill you out. He wants to play great defense, start pounding on you, getting as much as he can. He would like for the other team not to score, get ahead of him. But by the time he gets to the second half, he's got the adjustments made. He's starting to pound on you. He's got you on your heels. And that's how he's won games over the last, 9-10 years that he's at Georgia. And that's what they're good at. That's when you get Nick Saban was a defensive coach. Elko was a defensive coordinator type of head coach. And if they can get a good offensive coordinator to work for them, that may be the type of head coach that wins a lot of close ball games and can win national championships.
Absolutely. And now Georgia has won 9 straight over Auburn. The last 4, it's crazy when you just think about the dominance in the series, and the previous 4 meetings were won by an average margin of 20.2 points per game.
Right.
This one was basically a back and forth affair. You could have made the argument should have been 3 points. Gunnar Stockton with the late ad to give them the cover. Do you feel that Georgia right now they have a critical matchup playing this weekend, but do you feel Georgia defensively, from what you've seen throughout the start of the year till now, is as dominant on the defensive side of the ball, or you just believe they have athletes that if they get into the college football playoff, they'll find a way to make a run?
I think they're a little better than last year overall, but I'm not sure some of their championship years they're better than what they have been in the past as far as a complete team. I think they play good enough defense to win championships. I just at times they don't do enough on offense where they sit back and don't do quite enough on offense. I just think you gotta go out there and be a little more explosive on offense. But Georgia has enough talent that they can play with anybody. They get behind on offense, don't do enough things to get ahead. I think they need to, as they go into the season now, they've got to continue to be more explosive on offense and try to get some big plays built in. But I think they play good enough defense to win championships. And we saw them when they had to score points against Tennessee. They could score points. So I think without a doubt, Tennessee, Georgia is not out of the equation. You got Alabama, you got Texas A&M, you got Ole Miss, but you can't take Georgia or even LSU for that matter. I mean, we're talking about a one-loss team, so you can't take those teams out of the equation in the SEC.
I agree. Now, I think that's when we talk about Alabama, right, and we talk about that performance on Saturday, and you and I have talked about, yes, Ty Simpson is developing into that guy, right? You know, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He throws for 200 yards. He's had a 3-game heater right now against Georgia, Vanderbilt, and obviously undefeated Missouri, where he has looked like that guy. The question that I have is, you know, again, we talk about all these teams in college football. I don't think there's one dominant team. Now, you can make the argument it's Miami. That's fine. Again, if they played SEC schedule, would it be a little bit different? We don't know. But my point is, when you look at Alabama, defensively in run support, I saw Missouri. Now, I know Hardy didn't get going, but they gave up some chunk plays to Perbula in the rushing attack with the RPO game. Do we feel this front seven is going to be a hindrance? Should they make it into the playoff and then, you know, make a national championship run?
I just don't think there are any gimmies out there. I don't see anybody. Now, you didn't mention Ohio State. I still think they have the most elite defense.
I agree.
In the country right now.
Right.
But I don't see anybody that's got all the answers. The defense is good, but not – I mean, you don't see just dominate. You know, I think Oklahoma has statistically the best defense in the conference, and they still continue to play well on defense, even in the game that they lost against Texas. They continue to play defense, but I don't see any defense that just smothers the other team. And it's much maybe, like I said, Ohio State. But I see whether it be Alabama or Texas A&M or Georgia, I don't see quite that on Ole Miss. They tend to outscore people or keep the points going a little bit more. But Alabama's got good enough football team to get to the playoffs and compete in each of those games. You know, once you get to the playoffs, can we keep from getting hurt? We got plenty of depth. Are we playing our best football? Has the cream risen to the top? I think those, as we get towards the end of the season, the one thing we say about Alabama is they're getting better every week. I mean, they knock off Vandy. Then they knock. Missouri, believe me, the most underrated team in the conference. I don't think it's Vandy. I think it's Missouri. Nobody really gives Missouri credit year in and year out. Vandy has come on now to be another type of team like that, and they'll cause some fits this week at Vandy. But I do believe that Alabama is another team that has enough talent. There are probably 6 to 8 teams that have the talent to get beyond the first round of the playoffs if they can get to the playoffs and get in that mix.
I agree with that. I think, and not to take away from Ohio State, I've said it before, they are the best defense I've seen through 7 weeks of the regular season. Julian Sayin and Jeremiah Smith now coming on for the offense. They pounded Minnesota last week, and just dominated. They 27-point favorites already against Wisconsin, and they're a shoo-in potentially for a college football playoff appearance, even if they don't somehow, some way potentially win a Big Ten championship. I agree with you. I agree about Alabama. They're getting better every week. From what I've seen, Ty Simpson does look like that guy. Again, you talk about his poise, his confidence now in the pocket. You've seen the development. You've seen him take leadership of this offense week in and week out. And when you win games on the road, against a team in Missouri that had a home record of 32-7 under Drinkwitz and was 7-0 last year and won by 16 points per game and basically was undefeated this year at home. That was a dominant effort. Now, they didn't get the cover, but it doesn't matter. They're walking out of there with a W, and that's it, right?
Yeah, I mean, you knock off that kind of home field record, would they have 18 straight home wins at Missouri? And for them to go up there and get that win, that's huge. Right. And so I mean, whether they cover or not, I mean, just to go up there and win the football game is quite a statement. But again, there are some teams like that. I see Alabama getting better, and Ohio State about the same way up in the Big Ten. They still week in and week out, they're getting after people.
Absolutely. And the big game for the weekend that took place in the Big Ten and potentially could have repercussions was the dominance by Curt Cignetti in Indiana, right? That game, they were 7.5-point road dogs against Oregon. It was a back and forth affair in the third quarter and fourth quarter. It looked like the Ducks, I think the perception was Ducks go into halftime. They find a way to pull it out. Wasn't the case. This is a different Indiana team, coach, than it was last year. And they get the victory. They get it in dominating fashion. They shut down the offense for Dante Moore. And Curt Cignetti now has this train rolling. I guess the bigger question, twofold. He's on his way to his second college football playoff appearance in 2 years. And does he stay in Indiana or does he potentially bolt for the opening in Happy Valley?
Well, I mean, I can't believe they wouldn't go after him. His father was my head coach. Frank Cignetti at West Virginia was my dad's offensive coordinator, my head coach. Curt coached at IUP, Indiana University of Pennsylvania. His father coached there. He spent probably half his life in Pennsylvania. He's got a lot of ties. Of course, we grew up in Morgantown, where he grew up and I grew up. He's about 5 years younger than I am, so that's close to home. But it's a big time. When you're talking about being one of the elite programs, now you got to go back a few years, even to the era, the Joe Paterno era, when they were so dominant. The beast of the East, they used to call them. But it is one of those schools that it's the haves and the have-nots. I always felt that Nick Saban, the smartest thing he did was he said, I want to win championships. And if I'm going to do that, I've got to go to a school that have the ability to take you to a championship. Michigan State wasn't that school. LSU was. Alabama was. Penn State is. That's why they made a decision to part ways with James Franklin, because they want to go back to championship. And he wasn't getting them there. Regardless of what he did right, and he did more things right than wrong, he was paid to get them there, and they didn't see themselves getting there. I think Curt Cignetti, to me, it's remarkable, his evaluation of talent. I mean, basically, I don't care if he's got NL money. He doesn't have as much as Ohio State. He doesn't have more than Oregon, but he's finding athletes. He can identify talent, and he brings them into Indiana 2 years in a row, and then he puts them in a position to be successful. And so he's got the recruiting ability to evaluate talent, and he's done a great job with coaching and his coaching staff to have them playing so well. I mean, when they beat Illinois 63-10, I mean, it was like, oh, it must be luck. There must have been something wrong with the ball that day, Then to see them come back and play Oregon like that, beat Iowa, a close ball game. I mean, it's going to be interesting because I think he will be pursued by Penn State. They would be crazy if they don't, because no one has made a bigger impact on football in the last 2 years than Curt Cignetti.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting, too. I mean, you look at his lineage and his coaching resume. Yeah. You mentioned IUP. After IUP, he goes to Elon and then James Madison.
That's right.
And Indiana. But he was on the staff with Nick Saban back in 2007 to 2010. And when you just think about the other coaches that were on that staff, Cristobal, Sarkisian, Napier, Lane, why wasn't, and I'm just curious, why was like Cignetti not pursued he was the wide receiver coach, right? And the running coordinator. Why wasn't he one of those hot names back then? He went to James Madison and Elon.
I think I was at Sanford at the time. I forget if I was at Auburn or Sanford, or maybe I was even at broadcasting, but living in Birmingham. I remember talking to Curt, and he wanted to be a head coach. He he just wanted to be a head coach, and he says, I'm not made out to be an assistant. I'm made to be a head coach.
Right.
And so he followed his dad's footsteps. Because again, I knew his dad was my coach.
Right.
And Nick Saban was on his dad's staff at West Virginia when I was there as a graduate assistant. So there was a connection. But talking with Kurt at that time, he said he wanted to be a head coach. That's what his dad was. He replaced his dad at IUP. It was just a natural move to go up there and go through that. I wanted when I was young, I wanted to become a head coach exactly like my father. So I went to small schools and built my way up.
Right.
My brother Tommy, he said, no, I'm going to go to all the major schools and work my way up from an assistant position.
Right.
So whether it's right or wrong, Kurt Signetti, he learned. I like to tell people I learned how to coach with nobody watching. I learned how to coach at Salem College in Sanford. Nobody saw the mistakes I made, and I'm sure Kurt at IUP or at Elon felt the same way. But by the time he got to James Madison, he tore our conference up in the very first year he was there.
Right. Yeah, I mean, hit the ground running.
Exactly.
First in the conference for 3 straight seasons and just national champion and dominant coach of the year last year. You just look at the resumes, fantastic. And now we see this situation. Were you shocked so let me ask you this question. Yeah. Were you shocked twofold that Penn State loses the game as a 20.5-point favorite to Northwestern, especially at home in back-to-back weeks? UCLA, you get smacked. And then on top of it, the cherry, it's actually threefold, Coach. They lose the game. Drew Aller's done for the year. And oh, by the way, they lose their head coach.
That one shocked me, but without a doubt, that one shocked me. I guess if Ole Miss was about to blow one about the same way, but Penn State, for them to know how much was on the line, how far they had fallen, and how they still had a chance to get it back. There were still only 2 losses in the season. They had screwed up one, really. They lost a great game against Oregon, but it was still a great double overtime game. Though there was a screw up at UCLA. But if you're going to get it back, you're going to get it back the next week. And if you're not going to get it back at all. Because Northwestern's not at the level they are. Talent-wise, NIL-wise, all those things. And so it's amazing that James Franklin, with all the years he's been a coach, he couldn't get them to respond after the UCLA game. That one, I'm sure that's what played into the fact that they said, we've got to make a change now, because that was the game that correction should have been made, and they should have blown out Northwestern.
Right. And it wasn't. And now they're 3-3 overall. Interim staff. You got to worry, obviously, where do kids go?
Right.
Yeah, because now the red shirt, kids that only played 3 games, we got to see what happens with that. We have to see who kids will bolt. Hey, I have to worry about me now. No head coach. How do I know, the new head coach is going to coach me up and get me to the league?
Yeah.
And that's the concern now that Penn State has.
Yeah, and it'll play out week to week. It'll play out, and it might be like Virginia Tech, where you're favored and you win a game or 2 just on emotion. But eventually, the players start saying, "Man, I got to sit out now," or they're talking to an agent, or their agent is talking to somebody else's agent. So it's leaked, so they're not really talking face to face, and all of a sudden, half your team has got other teams poaching there. Because I guarantee they're poaching Ohio State. Penn State's being poached right now. I promise you. Because you've got some guys that didn't play in a game or has not played over the redshirt amount, and they can save a year of eligibility, and that means they can get more money at NIL. And if they're good enough to play at Penn State, they're probably pretty daggum good football players.
You know what? I feel like a question that's not being answered or asked, and it should be, is because they have one of the premier defensive coordinators, national champions, that left Ohio State to go to Penn State. And Jim Knowles now is going to be either a main cog for that team moving forward, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's one of the best. So you just look at where he's been. Oklahoma State's defense has never been the same. They went to a Big 12 championship with Jim Knowles. They didn't win it against Baylor, but once he left for Ohio State, that defense fell off a cliff. Okay, Ohio State stepped up, obviously, with Matt Patricia, but he still won a national championship last year, and now he goes to Penn State. what happens to Jim Knowles? He'll definitely get a job, but my question is, does the new coach look to keep him? I mean, he's one of the best in the game.
Well, I'm going to go one step further. What in the world were they giving up all those points to UCLA? UCLA couldn't score against anybody.
I know.
What in the world were they doing? What's going on there that he doesn't have them playing at the level they need to be playing anyway? But one, if I were him, I would want to have them rally around the defense to play as best they can. You know, good and well, he got a 2 or 3 year contract, at least what, 2 or 3, 4 million there a year. I don't even know what it is. I know he got a multi-year contract. So I mean, the guy he's set, he's comfortable. But what concerned me is you just got the number one defensive coordinator in the country. What happened that UCLA could figure out something that you couldn't figure out?
Right.
You know, with a young play caller, that they put that many points on you, and then to come back and not do any better against Northwestern, because I don't think James Franklin, I think he was more of a CEO type head coach there at Penn State. And so Jim Knowles, we'll see if he can pull them together, because like you said, his body of work is so good, he won't have a problem getting a job.
Right. And I guess the argument too, you know, game's on the line. Penn State has a fourth quarter lead. Defense gives it up. You know, how do you allow the go-ahead score in that type of situation? Is it a motivational, or is it scheme?
You just wonder what, I mean, like I say, when and I don't know. I mean, I wonder what the motivation is when you're moving around from school to school, and all of a sudden you're a coordinator and you're making head coaching money, and it's just, and you're getting older up in your career. All those things going through your head, and they just weren't playing as good. And they didn't dominate Oregon defensively when they played Oregon either.
Right.
But anyway, Penn State's got to pull it together and do what they can. It'll be the most interesting about it. Penn State now is who they're going to get to be a head coach. I don't know that there's any other storylines this year, because they can't. I don't think they can come back and go all the way. But what's the future hold for Penn State? Because that's one of those jobs. And I don't know if you saw the press conference, but the rule at Nebraska really, you got to learn to shut up. When people ask you about some other job, I don't care if you wanted it all your life. I don't care if your agent's talking to their agent. All you can say is, I'm getting ready for my next game. I love Nebraska. I plan on being here as long as I can, because that's what you plan on. And go out there and focus. But I remember when Florida State won that first big game against Alabama, and there was a press conference where Tony White got interviewed about the UCLA job, and he was saying, and you can't not have people ask you those questions, but you don't have to take 30 minutes to answer them. It's like you stayed up way too late thinking of all those answers about why you're just focusing on Florida State. And all I could think of, in fact, my brother Tommy, who's been a head coach, called me and says, that's an awful long press conference answer to a job you're not interested in.
Right.
That's an awful long answer,
He's gone.
That's me, Nebraska. I promise you, somebody was talking to him from UCLA, because after that Alabama game, see, that's why, buddy, nothing less important in life than the score at halftime. And, buddy, you better coach your ass off every single ball game, because that's how it's hard to win. It's hard to go undefeated. It's hard to win most of your games. I don't care where you are and who you are. You got to coach your butt off, because there's too many good coaches out there. And with NILs and portals, there are too many good football teams.
There are. And I think that's another question. It's like, I could see if Nebraska was 4-3, but they have one loss. They're still in the thick of a college football playoff run here. And I know these coaches, right? Bigger, they always want the BBD, the bigger and better deal. Right. But where's the competitive at? Like, if I'm in the middle of a season, I know it's a little different than every coach, but hey, if I'm 5-1, I want to get to 10-1. I have incentives too, right? And then I have much more leverage if my team makes a college football playoff. Right?
I think, as much as it looks like he's a veteran, I mean, I was head coach 28 years, and my brothers and my father are long. You don't always handle it like you wish you would have. Right. Sometimes when they ask you those questions, hey, I'm not focusing on that, and get off of it immediately. And just sometimes you don't. Some of those things you have to learn. And he may not, the coach at Nebraska, I just felt like he probably should have not answered but one time. And Tony White at Florida State, just answer it one time because it doesn't because you got a whole season. And the younger you are, you don't realize that you lose a couple of ball games, and nobody wants you to be their coach. I promise you, this fans are fickle. They are fickle. One year you're a genius, and the next year they want to fire you. So you just got to be. You better focus on the game the next Saturday. That's about all you can focus on.
All right. So before we talk about the games, I want to bring up this. I want to get your take. So I'm a believer now with the expanded playoff, right?
Right.
Meaning where forget the 4, we have 12 now, and it looks like we might even go to 16.
16, maybe.
And you talk about 2, let's say, or I'm going to throw in just 3 coaches, like you know. We'll throw in Lane Kiffin, Lanning, that's had success, and now Signetti.
Right.
When you have that train rolling in this type of an environment, right, at Oregon, and obviously Ole Miss has now been on the cusp of breaking through a college football playoff, and you're getting those recruits, and people are buying in. Why would you? And I understand it's the money, it's the prestige, but you still have to build up that program in Penn State, right? Why would you entertain that? Like, I'm a believer, like Lanning staying put. I don't think Lane will bolt for anything unless it's like Alabama. And in that situation, you're getting all the recruits now to come to your place, and you're a hot commodity. Why not keep that train rolling at your current like organization and institution?
Well, let me say this now. Even though we've talked about coaches' interviews, there's nothing that says that Kurt Signetti even wants to leave Indiana.
Right. No, I understand.
That they may be so locked in. The salaries are so good. You're either going to be too rich or too richer. You know, whatever you make, you're making more than you're probably going to spend in your lifetime.
Right.
And to me, Indiana, you can be your own. You can be the first guy to turn that into a incredible championship type program. I guess I'm saying we don't know that those coaches will even go there, but they are being pursued. When a university fires their head coach in the middle of the season, that's so their people can talk to your people. Now, if you're the head coach in Indiana or Nebraska, you can focus on nothing but your season. You may never want to leave, but your agent, that's what he's paid for. He's paid to listen. And they can talk to him, and he doesn't even have to go over it with you that much, but it's just casual conversation. So anyway, that's what's happening already.
Right.
At Oklahoma State, that's what happening at Oregon State.
Right.
That's what happening at Penn State. They got these things in order so they could get some initial. They know when recruiting is. They know how quickly it comes at the end of the season, and they would like to do some background work. But I'm with you. Why would you want to even consider somewhere else when you're about to have a great season where you're getting paid well? And if you want to really you want people to come after you, just keep winning. That bottom line is just as Al Davis would say, just win, baby. You know, it solves all the problems.
That's
just
it.
Win.
So and I'll just end it on this. I believe Penn State is a good job. I don't know if it's elite. Well, it's prestigious, we know, dating back to Paterno. I get that. But the way the game has evolved, right, with spread offenses and the quarterback being the most important aspect of the game for the most part, right? And if you don't have a great quarterback, you need a quarterback that can play within the scheme. You have to have elite talent on the outside and a top 5 defense if you want to win it the way Kirby did, let's just say.
Right.
But I'm going to throw 2 things at you. Penn State throughout the years, and I'll just throw like these names over the last 30 years, right? Zach Mills at quarterback.
Right.
Let's see. Darryl Clark, Michael Robinson, Christian Hackenberg, Drew Aller, Sean Clifford, Bo Prabula. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
I'm not talking about, national champion Deshaun Watson or AJ McCarron. And I know McCarron was just a game manager, but my point is that you talk about the talent. Look at the wide receivers. It's not LSU. I don't see a Jamar Chase, a Justin Jefferson, an OBJ. I don't see any of those type of playmakers coming out on the offensive side of the football outside the running backs. You want to make the argument that Penn State running backs like Saquon Barkley and all the rest of them, Katron Allen and Nick Singleton, will be great on the next level? That's fine. But how can you have and develop a national championship caliber team to challenge the likes of basically Ohio State that has had multiple wide receivers and quarterbacks go to the NFL, and you're at Happy Valley and you can't recruit one for the last 25 years? I don't understand that in today's landscape.
I don't think Penn State is its own worst enemy when it comes to that. You know, the old saying that I used to hear at Auburn, I'd rather run the ball and lose than pass it and win. You know, there's that old-fashioned style. And I think Penn State's had a little bit of that in their history. Big tight ends, big fullbacks, the Capolettis, go back to the old days, you know, the Franco Harrises and that type of football was what Penn State cut its teeth on.
But how are you going to recruit in today's landscape, right?
Well, somewhere along the line, that's what I think Penn State wants to hire. They've got to get to another level of football. Now, it doesn't have to be hiring a Southern Cal Riley at Southern Cal.
Right.
It doesn't, but it needs to be. Alabama's doing it, and Georgia's doing it, and even Clemson. You've got to get the best you can get. I think now in the age of NIL and portal transfer, they just can't get the best kids in Pennsylvania and Delaware and Ohio, and maybe Northeast Ohio. They've got to go out there and get the best in the country through NIL and portal transfer. But I believe if you're going to pay that much money for a coach, I believe that they're looking to see what Oregon has done. They're looking and seeing what some of these other programs have done. You know, Southern Cal was an I formation tailback school for 50 years. You know, it was power sweep right and power sweep left for about 6 national championships, and they probably went too far to be the other way.
Right,
they need to go back and play good Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State. Do you think those three play football? If you're a power school with all the ability to get any players you want, you need to play football like Ohio State, like Georgia, and like Alabama. You don't need to be throwing it around 60 or 70 times a game, or that's not the way you win national championships to me. That's where USC is right now. I think that's why they're having problems getting the big one.
Right. So we'll see. And USC plays Notre Dame. We talked about Notre Dame. They dropped the first 2 games of the regular season. They win again. They play USC this week. I mean, this is like, just from the big picture perspective, they're 8.5-point favorites. USC, I've said it was a big victory for USC last week. They get it. But, does Notre Dame, if I guess 10 wins will get them into the college football playoff the way everybody's talking. I just don't see it, because I think when you view Notre Dame, they're not the same team that they were last year. So maybe I'm holding them back a little. But after those first 2 games of the regular season, they don't have a quality win under their belt. Now, if they get one this weekend against a top 25 opponent in USC, that's great. But it's not a top 10 opponent. Are we still buying into Notre Dame here?
I don't think you and I may buy in completely, but I think the voters, I think there's enough people that are enamored by Notre Dame, and right or wrong, they're still a marquee name. There are reasons that some people are ranked so high above others because even though they got a loss or so, they still are those teams that get ranked. And it's always good for college football if Notre Dame's in the equation. But I will say this: I don't think they could. They only play Southern Cal's the only top 25 team. They're probably going to play the rest of the season.
Right.
But if they win the rest of their games, I bet you they'll put them in the playoffs. I don't know that they deserve it, or someone else won't get in because of that. And we'll have to see how they play to go through that. But they just don't seem like they're quite the team they were last year. And if they continue to play and if they dominate, if they beat Southern Cal convincingly and move on through their schedule, there's probably going to be a lot of people out there that are going to say, we need to get Notre Dame in the 12-team playoff. and
they'll get the benefit of the doubt, right?
Because that's right. They'll get the benefit of the doubt
because of the national championship game. So we'll see how that plays out. 8.5-point favorites.
Yeah,
they've dominated Lincoln Riley in recent years. We'll see if they could step up. I tell you what, the SEC to me has a great schedule this week. Let me just read it to you.
Yeah,
LSU, Vandy,
yes.
Ole Miss, Georgia, Bama, Tennessee. This A&M Arkansas game dating back to the Southwest Conference. I mean, come on now.
And then a great football game.
And then even Oklahoma, South Carolina. I mean, Mateer comes back. His thumb is, it was what it was, right? A little ring rust, they lose. Right. But now for Oklahoma to get back into the mix, they have to win this game in South Carolina. Huge. That's not an easy environment into Williams-Brice. And I know Lenora Sellers and that offense were shut down by LSU. Similar type of effort against Oklahoma just early on. Thoughts about that?
Well, I think Oklahoma, this is one of those do or die situations. The question is, did John Mateer, did they start him too quickly? Did they give his hand time to heal? He had no touchdown passes, 3 interceptions. He's a better football player than that. And they're still the elite defense in the SEC statistically is still Oklahoma. When you look at the scoring defense, total defense, rush defense, they're top 5 in all those areas. And Brent Venables is going to maintain that. But they're going to have John Mateer healthy. If he gets healthy and he can get that offensive going and cranked up, they get right back in the hunt, I think. Because again, the question is, did they try to play him too soon? Because remember, I said I believe if he doesn't play, I got Texas. If he plays and gets hurt, I got Texas. Well, he actually played and probably wasn't able to play like he can play, and It cost him the ball game.
Well, and here's where I think Venables made a mistake, right?
Yeah.
So, and I know Mateer's a gamer. He's going to want to play, right?
No question.
But if you're thinking team first, right? John, sit out this or at least come in garbage time. Let's see if Michael Hawkins can carry us. Why? Because if we lose the game, and I understand it's a rivalry game, but if we lose the game and we run the table, we'll get the benefit of the doubt if we're an at-large team that the one loss happened with Mateer at the helm. Like
Perfect.
My point is, if it's Oklahoma with 2 losses, let's say, and Notre Dame, I'm just throwing 2 teams out. And Mateer's didn't play in one of the games that obviously he hurts his thumb, that the committee might take a little leniency on that, where that's almost like the benefit in that type of situation, right? We know that, and if Hawkins pulls it out, great. Now Mateer's all of a sudden is healthier an extra week. So I thought that's where Venables made a mistake in starting Mateer. I think they should have sat down and said, is he 100%? If he's not, let's rest him. And then we could always use that argument if we have to with the playoff committee.
Yeah, and even if to take it another step, sit him out. If the other kid's playing real bad, you can at least make a decision in the second half. Is it worth taking that risk now, or let's go without him? Because I agree, they're going to get a little bit of loving, saying, hey, the one game you lost, you couldn't use your quarterback. And that would be taken into consideration. But we'll see how that goes. Oklahoma's got plenty of tough football to be played.
Absolutely. They have a tough gauntlet, one of the hardest schedules in the conference. I will say we're impressed with Auburn's front 7. This Oklahoma front 7 holding opposing offenses 2.7 yards per carry, only 87 rushing yards per game. If you watch the LSU game like I did on Saturday night, Lenora Sellers got absolutely abused by that front 7. He's banged up. Now, how effective will he be against this defense? To me, will ultimately dictate, Coach, whether South Carolina gets the victory. We'll break it down on Thursday night in deeper detail.
Yeah. Let me just say this. I mean, poor Sellers, he's been sacked about 18 or 19 times already this year.
He got hammered
He got sacked 5 times.
Yeah.
He's been beaten on. Of course, they fired their offensive line coach, and they still got 5 more sacks. That sounds like something that boy, Oklahoma's going to be coming after him.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we talk about the situation in Nashville. Right. We see, I believe, and this is crazy, that Vanderbilt is favored in the series for the first time since, I think, night. Now, I saw the tweet. I don't know if it's true.
Yeah.
I got to 1948.
I can
Okay.
believe it. I mean, this is a rarity. It's a rarity.
Now, LSU has won 10 straight in the series.
Right.
They won this game last year by 7, laying basically almost 10 points against Diego Pavia. They held on. Pavia was in position to potentially tie the game.
Right.
LSU's defense stepped up. But now they get them in Nashville. 12 o'clock kick. And not an easy game for Brian Kelly and LSU's offense.
I'm worried about LSU. What's the spot on this one?
2.5.
See, I worry about LSU because it is the type of team that can beat you with a system, with a misdirection, with a spread option type of, teams that like Vanderbilt, they can get you running the wrong direction and be effective that way. They don't have to physically overpower your defense. They can make it so hard for you to read it. And so they scare me. If I'm LSU, behind closed doors, I'm scared to death. I just say play fundamentally sound football, play smart football, play assignment football. We've got the talent to beat this team. We're more like Alabama than we are like LSU. We've got the talent to beat this football team. But I'm going to tell you, it's in Nashville, and they are the better. That's as good a Vandy team as they've had in a while. So that's going to be a heck of a game. I love the SEC games. That's just going to be a great game.
Yeah, it will be. I will say mobile quarterbacks give LSU problems. Lenora Sellers, they contain for the most part. But now you got to go back with a gutty quarterback in Diego Pavia that's still upset that he basically cost his team the game against Alabama.
That's right.
You know he's going to wear that on his shoulder. Not going to be easy. Also, when I look at this LSU offense, now we talked about it. Caden Dorm came back. They rushed for 6 yards per carry against South Carolina.
Right.
They got some big chunk plays in the rushing attack. Trey-Dez Green, phenomenal performance, over 100 yards receiving. The touchdown catch from Garrett Nussmeier. I saw a little bit more from Nussmeier.
Right.
254 through the air, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. They have to be disciplined. They have to win the turnover battle. They cannot overcompensate, and they have to keep their gap integrity as it relates to run support. If you have these ends crashing down, looking to make backside tackles, they're going to get killed in the RPO game. I worry about that with LSU. We'll see how this plays out. But Brian Kelly, make no mistake about it, he's on the hot seat. No room for error here against Vanderbilt.
Well, you know what, and that's I think I know a little bit about Florida State. I know that financially they are tighter. LSU's got they'll pay him off if he doesn't. They are more like Penn State. You know what? We paid to win. We got 100-something thousand people that show up every week for our game, and we expect to play for championships. So I'm not saying I'm not saying Brian Kelly's got a job. He hasn't going to have a great season. I'm just saying if he were to not have a playoff season or an SEC championship season, they're not going to tolerate. They paid too much money, and he left Notre Dame because he felt like he could win a championship at LSU that he couldn't win at Notre Dame.
Right.
I mean, the money's not that much different either place. They're both a lot of money,
Right, but he felt like he could never get the quarterback at Notre
Dame.
Right,
I know.
Gets the quarterback, right, with Jaden Daniels, and we go 9-3. 9-3 is senior season. It's amazing. I agree with you. Here's the other thing. You can't win the SEC West in year one, beat Nick Saban, and then all of a sudden be a 4-loss football team 4 years later. Can't happen. You're supposed to go the other way.
Expectations are too high. And you've given people a taste of what they want, what they hired you for. I know I'm sitting here in Louisiana and I'm listening to them. Everybody in the whole state is an LSU fan. They may be a ULM or a McNeese fan, but they are number one. They're LSU and the Saints. That's all I hear: the Saints and LSU. And buddy, they're not going to tolerate it. But anyway, that's what he went there for. That's what he's paid for. And the more you look at this situation, coaches, if you're going to take $110 million a year or $9 million, you better win. And then look them in the eye, shake their hand, say, "You did fair to me. I did the best I could." But he's got to go out there and make it happen now. And Vandy is a scary one, but they've got to win it if they're going to have the trajectory to the SEC championship game. they've got to win this game.
I agree. We'll see how it plays out. Early kick in Nashville. Another big one, 3:30. Ole Miss they were catching 7.5 about a couple of hours ago. We're seeing 7s throughout the market. Georgia has dominated at home in the series the last 2 times they've played. I think they won by an average margin of 31 points per game. They won 52-17 2 years ago in Athens. 2 years before that, they won 37-10. But we know, and you were on the sidelines last year, this was the game where Carson Beck started slow. It was rainy. He throws for $186, no touchdowns, 1 interception, and Walter Nolan in that front 7 contained Trevor Etienne in the rushing attack. This is not going to be easy for Georgia, but I still early on lean to the Bulldogs in this matchup.
I don't have trouble. I think Georgia will win. That was 7.5, 8 points.
7 points.
7 points. It's getting to that point where Ole Miss is kind of having a magical season. But Georgia at home, Georgia having to get this win. Georgia's already lost. They're going to play a great football game. And historically, Lane Kiffin doesn't play as well offensively in away games. He does better at home. He likes to. If he's better than you, he's going to beat you by 1,000,000. These games, I don't think he has. He does not have the talent he had last year. He had best. I couldn't believe the talent he had on defensive front. The defense compared to Georgia last year. Georgia was not the best, most talented team on the field last year against Ole Miss. They are this year.
So here we go, Coach.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the 3rd Saturday in October. Right? I love this, by the way.
Yeah.
I love Alabama, Tennessee. I mean, you go back to the early 90s, back with Gene Stallings, and I love those teams back in the day. Just Andy Kelly for Tennessee, just the quarterbacks, Jay Barker back in the day for Alabama. Remember him and George Teague in that group. Chris Anderson, the running back for Alabama, was an all-time favorite. But here's the thing. The last time, okay, and I'm just looking at – I just want to make sure I have this correct. The last time Tennessee beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa, Coach, came back in 2003. They won 51-43. 2003 was the last time. I think Mike Shula was the coach for Alabama back then. Then. I think Brody Croyle could have been the quarterback for Alabama. I got to double check that.
I know his dad, John Croyle, played for Alabama.
Right. So number 12, that's how long ago we're talking about in terms of dominance. Now, prior to the past few seasons, Alabama used to dominate Tennessee under Nick Saban. They won from 2007 straight through 2021. The last 2 or 3 meetings, Tennessee has stolen in Knoxville. They now go on the road. My heart is telling me I want the 9.5 points with Joey Aguilar. Can they do it? Can they upset it in Bryant-Denny, where Alabama's got 1 loss dating back to 2020?
I think Alabama's going to win. I'm taking Tennessee in the points because I think they're going to score points and keep this game a give and take. Alabama's going to have a little bit more. But I do not have Alabama losing the football game at home. I just don't believe that's going to. And that is played in Tuscaloosa, isn't it? I am right.
Absolutely.
Make sure I've been reading up.
Yeah.
And let me say this: this game goes back way before Nick Saban. This Alabama and Auburn hate each other, but the rivalry for the best teams was Tennessee and Alabama all the time. This was Gerald Nayland and Bear Bryant and Wallace Wade and Frank Thomas and all the national championship coaches. It was Tennessee and all the great coaches at Tennessee that Johnny Majors back in the day and when he played and all the majors there. This was a great rivalry, but Alabama has dominated for a long time right now. And but I think it'll be a great game. I think Tennessee's going to score points. I've got this as an over. I've got this as an over. I think both teams are going to score points.
Let me give you the total. Because it's going to be high just because of how Tennessee plays tempo. I'll give you the latest update on Alabama and Tennessee. What do you think it is? Take a guess.
I saw it before. Was it 55 or 50?
58.5.
Oh, geez, yeah. But I still think it's going to be a 30s game. But
It could be. I mean, just so you know, the Arkansas Tennessee game was a 68.5.
Yeah.
And they went under that total. So that's how explosive Tennessee is. And when they get somebody like a running mate,
Right.
they have no problem getting into the 70s in their games, potentially 80s. So
Alabama's secondary has been, but the explosive deep ball has hurt them a little bit, and Tennessee's going to be able to will work on that. But that's also a forte of Alabama's too. They got some receivers that can take it deep, and so I just think I think it's going to be a great game, but I think it's going to be more of a scoring game than a non-scoring game.
We'll see. And Ryan Williams held without a catch last week. You know, you got to get your playmakers involved. Bernard had a pedestrian type of day, you know, but Ty Simpson still stepped up when the game was on the line, found critical wide receivers on 3rd and 7, 4th and 3. He found big plays throughout the day. So we'll see how that game plays out. I really love this matchup just because it goes back. I said Southwest Conference days, A&M and Arkansas, and I know that they used to do it in Jerry's world. I don't think they do that anymore. It's back on a home and home in this type of situation, Coach. Here's the thing about this. The last 3 meetings have been decided by an average margin of 6.7 points per game. A&M has won, I believe, 3 straight in the series. Let me just get your thoughts about this. A&M, potentially best defense trending over the last 3 weeks in the conference?
Well, because of their third down mark, it's incredible. They probably, what's made them one of the best defenses, I don't know statistically if they're the number 1 rush defense, but when I look at a team that's 2-33, opponents are 2-33 on third downs.
It's incredible.
I mean 1-10, 1-10, 0-13. That's all SEC schools the last 3 games on third downs. Now, I didn't look at the 4th downs, but we know if they're stopping on third down, it's going to be short yardage on 4th down. But amazing what they have been able to do and what that means, the team came off the field. That means their offense came off the field and the defense and they couldn't get scored on. And so those are remarkable numbers. And if they continue to play like that, they're going to they can beat anybody because of the way they're able to get the other team off the field, and that puts their offense, Marcel Reed, their running backs back on the field. Le'Veon Moss may be banged up, I believe.
He is. He's slightly banged up. I don't know.
Darian Price, isn't that
No, that's Notre Dame.
That's Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Their other running back has done real well also at
A&M.
A&M, and so they will still run the football. And of course, Marcel Reed can run the ball as well.
Yeah, Reuben Owens is second leading rusher.
That's it, Reuben Owens. That's right.
327 yards on the year.
And a couple of outstanding receivers.
Now, the game is played in Fayetteville.
Right.
Arkansas covered this line. They lost at 21-17 last year to A&M. I said the last 3 games, A&M has won by an average margin of victory of 6.7 points per game. My heart, again, I love this Arkansas team. I love them from a personnel perspective. I love this kid, Mike Washington. He wears number 4. Love that. Tough runner. I love Taylon Green. The only thing I'm worried about, again, they expended a lot of energy. They lose that game, cover against Tennessee. They're at home. We worry, right? But it's a rivalry game. And this is similar to Virginia Tech here.
No question.
Right? This has to be the final stand. Right? It's a rivalry game dating back to the Southwest Conference days where Quinn Grovey, Kevin Murray, you name the old timers for Texas A&M, Barry Foster, Quentin Coriat. We could go through all the names. You got to believe that Arkansas will give it one more shot in this game, right? Before they just wrap it up and have nothing to play for.
Well, I think with no question, we've seen that with Taylor Green at quarterback and the way they played last week. It's a little different, but I think Virginia Tech did the best they could. They weren't a real good team either way. Arkansas was very close to having a real good year. They were very close to winning some ball games and having the year that would have kept Sam Pittman there. So the kids seem to continue to play really hard. They continue to want to win. I imagine Taylor Green has a lot to do with that.
Right.
They're going to come out there with their best because they don't want Texas A&M. They're not fond of each other. And they will. This will be a cranked up bloodbath. This is one of those rivalry, we don't like each other type of games.
is it important that Petrino, the OC, is the interim so you got Taylor Green? Because if your quarterback's checked out, right, then you got no shot. So better that it's Petrino to maybe rally him.
That's a good point.
As the DC, right? Like if you're going to get Taylor Green's best effort, hey, stay with me when I get the job, or if I bolt, I'll take you with me. But we got to put up numbers. You know, you have a draft status, right?
I think there's without a doubt if the quarterback coach or the coach that's working with the quarterbacks is one that's been interim, it's there involved. It keeps the quarterback engaged in what you're trying to get done. And I would think the communication level would be very good right there. I think that's a real plus, you know, whether they should hire Petrino again or not. That's such a messy old affair, but I know one thing, he can get that offense playing. And he can get Taylor Green playing one more week pretty dang good.
Yeah, absolutely. We have 3 games that left there, and we'll just go through. Actually, 2. We have Texas Tech and Arizona State.
Right.
You know, Tech has looked like, I mean, the money's paid off, Coach, with Joey McGuire. I mean, the money has paid off. And let me just ask you this from the coaching perspective. Seeing how Texas Tech has been able to do it, right? Because they initially started the NIL 2 years ago, and they were giving every kid $50K. Now they've revamped that, and they had an influx in facilities. They're giving out, you know, millions in NIL money. They did it with the baseball and softball program where they lured the girl for $1 million from Stanford, right? So it started with the tertiary sports. Is this the blueprint, what Texas Tech has done potentially for like teams like Penn State, you know, those that are close but couldn't break through?
Oh, I think without a doubt. It's not a mystery how you get good football players. I mean, if either, you know, in the old days, you built better facilities, you built better things for the players. You won games and got them to the NFL. Right now, the NIL money is the number one reason. I think even more than winning championships, those kids see that money. Now, when you put the money with a chance to be successful, but Texas Tech has shown the way, and I think you could say the same thing about Indiana to some extent. They're putting money out at Indiana and getting players to come that would never have come to Texas Tech or come to Indiana. And right now, their defensive front, who'd have thought that the Red Raiders would have such a strong defense? The passing game is incredible. I think they're 5-0 against the spread versus FBS teams this year,
right?
Which means they're whatever they pick, they're outscoring the line because of the number of athletes that they have. So now I don't know whether the quarterback is banged up. I've heard that both of them are kind of banged up.
Yep.
I think I'm going to make sure to see who's playing and what, because that does kind of change things. So when I think about how you go about winning, but if you got a good guy on deck or in the batter's box, you keep that stuff going on. But the great thing about Texas Tech, they're playing great defense as well. It's been a prolific offense, a little bit more so than Arizona State. I've been riding Texas Tech all year, and they've won every single time. And until somebody can stay close to them, I'm going to keep riding Texas Tech.
Now, Texas Tech has been my team. I know we haven't talked, but I backed them, you know, back-to-back years. I love what Joey McGuire has done. I haven't been all in because I've been all in the previous 2 seasons, and I thought last year would be that breakthrough year. But obviously, we saw the recruiting, to your point about the NIL, and Will Hammond and Baron Morton have both been competent quarterbacks. Yes. Hammond was a deer in the headlights last year. You go back to the TCU game, he was a freshman. He looked a little inexperienced. He's poised now. He knows where he wants to go with the football. Right. I will just say this. I actually like the points with Arizona State, and I know they got abused by Utah. But 2 things about the loss and where I'm looking now. This line opened up at 11.5. It's down to 8.5. That would lead me to believe that maybe Levitt plays as opposed to Jeff Sims that was terrible last week.
Right.
But Arizona State typically still plays good in run support. They're giving up 111 rushing yards per game, right? Hammond and Baron Morton are drop-back passers. They're not going to abuse you the way Dampier did with the RPO game. Right. So I think that factor could be taken out. I'm going to get Arizona State's best effort shutting down the run to the best of their ability. I like that shot. The other shot is Kenny Dillingham over the past couple of years now, undefeated at home. He was 6-0 last year, 3-0 this year, 9-0. If you're going to get a home dog in the desert, I'll take a shot with the undefeated team. Now, they don't have to win. They just have to keep it within 8.5 points. Maybe they step up. Maybe they lose it by 4. Maybe they lose it by 3. But as long as you want to give me over a touchdown, I'll take a shot with the home dog.
Well, I mean, I gotta say, I'm riding it until they let me down. I'm going to ride Texas Tech, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll dive into this game a little bit deeper. The other take, and it's one big game in the ACC. There's a big game on Friday.
Right.
We talked about it today, Louisville and Miami.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't believe Louisville is the same defense that we've seen over recent years. I mean, you're playing with house money. I think Louisville is just because they're not expected to win, you know, and they've played them tough. But the other big game is Georgia Tech and Duke. And I brought this up to you earlier, and I said Manny Diaz has been mentioned for the opening for Penn State.
Right.
Preparation-wise, are you concerned at all for the preparation? Now, his agent might be talking to Penn State.
Yeah.
You don't know. Is it a concern? Or
I,
they're at home, they're favorite,
right.
but you got a Georgia Tech team that just came out of a bye and demolished Va Tech.
I think he's too battle tested as a head coach. He's been fired at Miami. He's been through the ups and the downs. I think he's heard all this talk. He's heard all the behind the scenes stuff before. I think it's not going to be hard for him to lock in. I think he's excited about what he's doing at Duke. And so you can't help Penn State may wanting to talk to you because he was a coach there. He was defensive coordinator there. Right. But I do believe it will not affect him, that he'll be able to lock in. I think he sees the great things he's accomplishing at Duke. The Penn State thing will be there regardless of how he approaches it. And this is going to be a tough one. I'm going to stay with Georgia Tech on this thing, but Duke is favored. They're favored, and Georgia Tech's ranked higher, and Georgia Tech is undefeated. But Duke is favored in this football game. It's because of the quality that they play. One, Georgia Tech has to get a fast start. They've got to somehow slow down that prolific offense. I mean, Duke's got a great offense. And then Duke has to somehow get the running game. I mean, Georgia Tech has a great running game, and the quarterback he's as good at running his team's offense, maybe Pavia at Vandy, but I think even above Pavia that Haynes King runs their offense as good as any quarterback in the country running their offense.
You know, the last game that Duke played was against Cal. They dominated that matchup. You know, and I think it's important, to your point. Look at this schedule, Coach. They beat Georgia Tech. They have Clemson in Death Valley.
Right.
At UConn, Virginia, who's playing well. They're ranked 18th. North Carolina and Wake. They could be in the ACC championship. They could be a 10-2 football team. And you know what? They win the ACC, they're going to be in the college football playoff.
You talking about Duke?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. If they win this game, they're right in the thick of things. Just like I'll reverse that. If Georgia Tech wins it, they'll be 11-0 going into Georgia. Right. And that's not a conference game. But if Duke wins this, shoot, they'll be in the driver's seat as far as getting to the ACC championship. And don't be shocked if they get into the and I would never have quite picked them to get to the playoff. But this is a new age. This is a new era of football. Whether you like it or you don't like it, it's a heck of an exciting time to see teams jump out there and get into the hunt of things they never could pursue before, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Vandy and Duke, how could you imagine these two teams would be right there in the thick of being as good as anybody in their conference?
It will be interesting to see the rest of in the back end of the season. We're at the midway point now. By the end of November, right around Thanksgiving time, we'll have a better understanding about who potentially is going to make it and who's on the outside looking in. I think the one team right now in, no matter what, is Ohio State, barring an absolute collapse. We believe best team in the nation heading into week number 8. So we'll see how it plays out. We'll be back on Thursday night. We won't be back on Wednesday. We'll be back on Thursday, same time, right around 8 o'clock. We'll break down all the top 25 battles. We'll give our picks, our selections, our analysis, and we'll see you on Thursday night. For Coach Bowden, I'm Joe Lisi. Have a great day, everyone.
Take care.